Take a look at this really interesting map. 12 little pins scattered across South Africa. And each one of these little pins is actually where the government said, hey, look, in these little places, we'll make it easier to build factories, move goods, hire people. They're called special economic zones or SEZs. And here's the uncomfortable question around them. If we've built 12 of these, why are we still stuck 33 to 34% unemployment in South Africa if they're actually meant to be easier to hire people and build factories and so on and so forth? I mean, what are these things? Are they just another government ploy to make themselves look good, or just another press release, where they fenced areas and they're like, aha, here you go. But the real answer isn't necessarily in the speech. It's in the map. So basically what these places are, without too much jargon, is where the government went and said, look, we're going to make these designated zones a lot easier to foster investment into the country. There'll be better infrastructure, faster processes compared to everywhere else in the country, with more financial incentives as well. And the biggest incentives that they've placed within these designated areas is that if you're a qualifying company within these SEZs, you only pay 13% of the corporate tax rate compared to 28%, which is for the rest of South Africa. There's also relief on VAT and import duty and a promise for one-stop shop of approval. So rather than waiting days and weeks and months, they expedite the process for approvals within these SEZs. Now, this model is not actually crazy. So a classic example of this would be in Shenzhen, China, where it was previously just a small fishing village as recent as 30, 40 years ago, to the biggest global manufacturing powerhouse in the world using the same model. But here's the thing with South Africa, we don't need a methodology, we need a mechanism. And that mechanism is really simple if you think about it. Industries cluster where moving goods is cheap and reliable. That's it. Which brings us back to this map. And when you plot all 12 of these areas, the logic is pretty coherent. I mean, you've got coastal port zones, Coega, East London or Kukompo, Richards Bay and KZN, Saldanha. Those are all oriented around one thing, exporting. Then you've got the airport-linked zones, right? The Dube trade ports near King Shaka International or the OR Tambo precinct. That's more for fast-moving category, right? High-value, time-sensitive movement of goods. Then corridor and border plays. So there's Maloti Apofung that sits slap bang along the N3 between Durban and Johannesburg. It's almost like an inland port. Nkomazi, which is close to Mozambique, and Musina Machado up the north on the N1 when you're driving towards Zimbabwe. And then there's the new economic bits, right? So Atlantis in the Western Cape, that's looking to focus on green tech and renewables, as well as Namakwa which was actually designated just now in 2024. And this is tied more to mineral wealth and benefication, right? So you see it, ports, airports, corridors, and that's not random, right? That is the strategy. It's basically saying, let's seed industry where movement should be the easiest. But here's the interesting part, right? There's a difference that exists between geographic reality and geographic logic. Two very different things. And let's start with what is working, right? Coega. We all know about Coega, right? And by its official numbers, it's pulled in over 11.5 billion rands in direct and accumulative investments. And it's created just over 10,500 direct jobs. I mean, this thing is punching hard, right? It doesn't win because it's got the best incentive pack. Coega wins because its location does most of the heavy lifting. I mean, it sits right next to the port of Nkura, deep water as well, so big vessels can come, and it's plugged right into a very real trade route. And investors say this directly. In one survey, more than half of them said, look, it's just because it's close to the port. That's the only reason why they located here. Not the tax rate, not the policy, the port. And here's the part that some policymakers should maybe start sweating over. In the same survey, 64% said the government's incentives didn't even play a major role in deciding for them to be here. Not the tax, not the policies, just location. So the lesson here is not build more zones. I think the lesson is more build where movement makes sense, then make sure it actually works. Now let's zoom out of this whole system for a bit. Across 12 zones, government reports about 30.9 billion rand in accumulative investment and just over 27,000 permanent jobs. In a country this size, with unemployment this deep, that's not a miracle, but it's a signal the model can actually work. So why are so many of these zones actually underperforming then? I mean, let's name the real constraint here because they're not actually abstract at all. The first problem would be, of course, the broken logistics. I mean, on paper, if you look at Richards Bay, for example, it should make a lot of sense. I mean, it's coastal, it's industrial, it's got the port, but the official briefings have flagged that Transnet's container port terminal in Richards Bay has poor operational efficiency. Translation, the zone is ready, but the port is a mess, and the zone is kind of stuck. East London is another version of this as well. East London, or Kugombo, is the same situation as well. Port limitations, limited rail connectivity as well. And if you overlay all of this with the lack of rail and port bottlenecks, it just doesn't match the ambition, man. Basically, these are like industrial islands. Problem number 2, governance and capacity. I'm gonna point you to Maloti Apofong, or MAP says. Now again, this is also a strategically brilliant approach here, right? It sits slap bang in the middle of Johannesburg and Durban, right? Literally the spine of this country's economy. Yet these constraints for this specific SEZ are as simple as lack of human resources and poor corporate governance. Translation, brilliant location, badly run, and still failing. And then the third problem, investors can't even access their incentives. And this one is almost like funny in a very dark way. Atlantis, the green tech zone and the renewables hub, right? It has investors who can't even get access to the zone that they were promised. The benefit exists only on paper, but not in practice. And problem number 4, and it's a big mindset one. Even in the best performing economic zones, right? Whether it's Coega or whatever it might be, most investors say that the incentives are not why they even decided to invest in this. They came because the movement works. So if zones are underperforming, it's not because the idea is dumb. It's because the fundamentals aren't following the designation. I mean, this is not just industrial policy. It's more of that thing of, okay, what the hell is this country gonna do over the next decade? Like, what's South Africa trying to actually do here? I mean, load shedding has eased up. Our politics are kind of reshaping. We went from ANC to GNU to we don't know what's about to happen in the local election. We're in a real touch and go place. I mean, there's a real push to drive investment back in this country, and SEZs could be that way. But SEZs should not be the whole plan. They're almost a physical manifestation of it. They are basically a means within which policy can become a real tangible thing, right? Because no one likes reading policy. We just want to see it take effect. And our geography as a country gives us such a massive advantage. The N3 corridor from Durban to Johannesburg carries goods constantly, perpetually, and any inefficiency that affects this corridor becomes a tax on the whole country, right? Maloti Apofong sits exactly on this. Governed well, serviced well. It could actually be an in-flight node that exists on the spine, ready to catch any of these inefficiencies. And then let's look at the border SEZs, right? Musina, Makado, Nkomazi near Mozambique. We live in an Africa or a SADC that's trying to trade more and more with itself. These points become key gateway points, or else they get left behind and they get beaten by corridors that just work better. And Atlantis, well, South Africa is very serious about renewals. And if Atlantis really is the best place to capture and ride this wave, then why not? But only if the administrative aspect of it functions well. Look, the geography is real, the opportunities are real. The key variable here, the thing that we can't really control and we need to really focus on, is the execution aspect of it. So what would actually change the outcome? 3 moves, not 12, honestly. 12 is a lot of special economic zones. A lot of money went into these things. So what would actually change this outcome? Number 1, fix our ports, fix rail. This is a big one. I mean, if Transnet does not improve its operations, the coastal zones are dying, and that's not an SEZ problem. That's a national logistics problem, and it kills any potential for an SEZ even in the future, right? Number 2, match governance with the local advantage. Some zones have great location but poor management, and some have decent management and structural location limits, almost on the flip, right? And we need to treat these zones as critical infrastructure with accountability in place. And number 3, let's stop treating the tax incentives as a product, right? And I think this gives us a glimpse into the psyche of the people that wrote this policy. Reliability is actually the product. The speed, the services, the predictability of moving goods, the utilities, that's what has filled the zones. I mean, let's get the basic right, and the incentives will be a byproduct, like a bonus. Get them wrong and those incentives don't even matter. None of this is theoretical. It's coordinates. It's precise. Transport, Department of Treasury, operations, municipalities, all of them pulling together, rowing in the same direction, right? And right now we do not have a coordinated team trying to get us to operations heaven, if that makes sense. And right now South Africa does not have a well-oiled coordinated machine trying to row us and get us to the peak of this operational glory, right? So here's what this map actually tells you, that all the political and policy speeches will not tell you. Our SEZs are not random. They're not just placed there, but they weren't thrown there, right? They sit exactly where industry should cluster. The results are still quite modest. Coega is proof that the model works. And not because of what it's called, but because of what it's connected to, everything around it. It's 2026 and South Africa needs jobs, it needs investment, it needs industrial recovery. SEZs are one of the very few tools that can enable this. So yeah, basically special economic zones have an opportunity to solve a lot of our problems if done right. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think SEZs are not talked about enough and are not something that the government and the president are not making reference to enough? Or perhaps we should just kill them and focus on what works? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you guys on the next one.